How's it going, New World? Sethphir here, and today we are back with another video. We are going to be taking a look at a few things today that I think will help you going into launch. The things I wanted to point out would be mistakes, right? Things that you want to avoid for certain going into the launch day here coming up very shortly. So I wanted to get this one out right before because I wanted to save people a lot of time and heartache. These are things that I messed up on in previous games and also in this game in different iterations of the game, whether that be the closed beta, the open beta, and things of that nature. So I just want to go ahead and start you off on the right foot, get some good habits instilled into you, and help you avoid these mistakes, right? So we'll go ahead and jump into the list here, and we're starting off with mistake number 1, which is going to be make sure your game is downloaded. Your graphics drivers are updated, whether that be NVIDIA or AMD. They got new updates for that, so go ahead and check that out. And also make sure that your settings in-game are adjusted before you get into the game, right? So at this point in time, the download should be available for everyone who pre-ordered the game or purchased the game. So you can go ahead and download it. You can like open the client, right? And then you can go to the settings and mess with those right now. So I would go ahead and do that. Just make sure everything is set and ready for you at launch, because the last thing you want to do is be downloading the game or oops, all my keybinds are wrong, or something of that nature. Oh, my graphics card crashed because it didn't have this and that. So definitely avoid that, right? That's a very basic one. It's generic. We'll get into some more New World related ones after this for sure. So mistake number 2 I see a lot of people talking about is when is the right time to meet up with your friends. Do not be the guy that makes a character and then spends 45 minutes running across the map to get to your friend. That is not the play. That is a huge mistake. What you can do is, and I would be very cautious because this is going to be like a two-parter for this mistake. When you make your character, you could delete it and re-roll to see if you spawn in a better area. But do keep in mind that that can place you into a login queue, which means if you are on a high pop server, that might affect you because you might be having to re-enter the login queue when you log out. So just be careful on that. But other than that, if you do end up spawning far away from your friends, the best way to go about that is to simply do the main story quest line until you hit level 8 or 9. And then head to the old man in the river once you get that quest. Once it wants you to head to Yañez, I believe is his name, in the river. That is the perfect spot to meet up with all your friends. So just have your friends do that. It takes like 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at most if you're rolling through there. And it's just going to be a lot easier than you traversing the entire continent to go from First Light all the way to Everfall or something like that. It's going to take you so long to get there, like easily 30 minutes. So just avoid that one. The third mistake here is that I see a lot of people do. This is a trap where they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go a mage or something. And they just start with a fire staff right out the get-go. Fire staff is so bad at level 1. It is so bad. And even at like level 3, it's not the best. So use weapons that are good at leveling, at least to get you to that, like, level 20 range, right? And then you can respec. Also, keep in mind that you have a free respec all the way up to level 20 for your attributes. So you can easily bounce around from a strength weapon to a dex weapon and put all those things in. Like, let's say you find a really nice dex weapon. It's really high gear score, does a lot of damage. You could swap it up. You could. The early game leveling on the weapons is not very big. Like, it takes forever to get to like weapon skill level 6 or 7, and it means literally nothing because like in the end game you could pretty much do a dungeon and level up straight up to level like 9 or something, or do some PvP and get like 600-700 weapon skill per point. I got 2400 weapon XP for killing a player before, like in end game, so you'll skyrocket up there really fast. So I wouldn't worry about that one too much. So use weapons that are good at leveling, like strength-based weapons often have a lot of really good leveling time early on because they scale really well with damage, and mana can be like a funky utility to deal with unless you have a lot of the talents and like abilities. So moving on to mistake number 4, do not pass up iron, silver, and things like life bloom, warm petal caps, and then also there's also nuts, honey, milk, and then fiber, right? That's going to be a big list there. So I wanted to get all those out because they're all super important. So if you're walking through the woods and you see iron, get it. Just pick it up. You're going to need it. You're going to need copious amounts of it. It's insane. You're going to be using iron to pretty much craft everything. You're going to need it for town boards. You're going to need it for quests and material making, so just make sure you pick it up because it will make your life easier. It will allow you to power level faster as well. The same goes for all those other ingredients I listed. Silver is something really important for jewel crafters, so you know you can always get that to kind of help other people out. It also is used for the main story quest line, and you're going to need some things like that. You know, a lot of the herbs are used for potions, the life bloom and warm petal cap, and then nuts, honey, and milk is like prime cooking ingredients. So the way you get milk is from the cows in town, so make sure you're milking those every, I don't know, it's like 30 minutes to an hour on the cooldown for that. There's also a honey spawn in every town. Make sure you pick that one up. It seems to be about the same cooldown timer. And then the last one being nuts is just something you find out in the wild laying on the ground next to trees. Pick them up because they are big cooking like supplements, so you can kind of use them to like fill in any gap of any ingredient that you're missing essentially. So high priority on those. And then fiber is the last one, that's hemp. Just make sure you always pick that up because honestly you can never have enough of it. It's always good. You can turn it into something, right? So going into the next mistake, that's going to be mistake number 5. I see a lot of people passing up these elemental animals. And what do I mean by that? It looks like a little fire salamander sitting on a log or something, or a glowing moth. It's called like the life moth, like sitting on there. So elemental animals are huge. So how it works is when you go up to pick one, you have a chance of getting the epic elemental animal material, which is very good in its own right. But if you fail to get that one, you get like a complimentary bonus of like 30 to 40 of a certain mote of that element. And motes are very, very highly sought after for alchemy. You need so many of them. You're going to need them later for jewel crafting, for stone cutting, for basically just making keys for dungeons in the late game and everything of that nature. So you do not want to pass up these elemental animals. They make sound effects, they glow, they're very obvious and awesome looking, and you would just be like, oh wow, that's a blight moth. I can see because he's a giant beetle and he's like darkness is all around him, right? Like it's super easy to identify these things. So if you see one, pick it up. And on that side note, keep an eye out for air motes and soul motes, as those are very valuable. They're the most, like, what is it called? Like the choke point for a lot of professions is air and soul. And that's going to come from things like shock bulb and blight moss and things like that. Soul worm and something else. So make sure you check out those things because they're definitely going to be very useful later on. So going into the next mistake to avoid is going to be number 6. I see a lot of people trying to skin and level up off of wolves. That's not the way to go. It's okay, but you're not going to get that much rawhide. Like, you will get experience, and that's really good. But it is much better to hunt buffalo. They give like 5 times the amount of rawhide. There's a lot of them on the river of Windsward and other various places. If you cannot find buffalo, deer and elk are the way to go. They do give quite a lot of rawhide as well, and they're very easy to kill. And if you really can't find all that, the lynx, those are also decent, but not as good. But wolf and boars are like the last priority. They give like the lowest because they're so common. They're like actual enemies, but like the buffaloes give a ton of leather, right? So just keep an eye out for that because you could spend a lot of time farming these wolves, getting like 10 pieces of rawhide every time, and you have to skin the whole thing, or you could kill one buffalo and get like 50 rawhide. It's actually insane. So make good use of your time there. The 7th mistake I see a lot of people doing is going to be fast traveling with weight. So the way fast traveling works is that it will cost a certain amount, then it will cost another amount based on distance, and then it will cost an additional multiplier based on the amount of weight you're carrying in your inventory. So if you look down at the bottom, you can see I'm 240 out of 250 pounds. I do not want to fast travel at this point because it is going to cost me an arm and a leg to do so in terms of Azoth, right? So what you can do is put your stuff in your storage, and then you can kind of use that. Once you get down to that low weight, you should see that Azoth cost go down way low. And once you're in that like 40 range or something, that's pretty nice to do. You never want to Azoth travel for like 150, 200. That's all absurd. You're just blowing away your resources, and you do not want to do that. It's an easy mistake to make too, like when you go back to town. So just be aware, like when you look at the fast travel costs, be like, wait a minute, that's way too much. Why is it too much? It's probably because of your weight. There are some other discounts like faction and things like that, but we talk about that in other videos, so you can go into some details for that if you check out the other guides. So going into mistake number 8, that is going to be not using your in cooldown and not using the death respawn mechanism to basically gain travel time, right? So what I see a lot of players do is their in is up and they just walk all the way back to town. Like, oh man, it seems so obvious, but in this game, you don't really have like a Hearthstone in your inventory, right? So it's kind of hard to track that timer. The only way to see that timer is to mouse over the place where you have your in on the map, and then you can kind of get like an indicator there that's gonna be like, oh, okay, it's coming up in like 20 minutes. Maybe I should just stay here and get a little bit more resources or something, and then use my in cooldown. Maybe 20 minutes is too much, maybe 5 minutes or something, you know, instead of wasting your time heading all the way back to town. So kind of play around that. And also you can respawn near the nearest like settlement or location. So if you're like kind of close to town, like let's say you're like 1,000 meters off and that's the closest town to where you are, you could consider just tagging some mobs and letting them kill you. Like, yeah, you're gonna take the penalty for armor, like you're gonna lose durability and have to repair a little bit of gold and repair parts, but it's not that big of a deal. Like, I wouldn't do it all the time because you will run out of repair parts, but it can save you a nice like 5-10 minute travel if you're death respawning properly. So do keep that in mind. The 9th mistake that I see a lot of people make is not using the dodge roll mechanics. So as you see right there on my screen, I rolled and I swapped to my weapon immediately. So how that works is you will basically roll and then switch to your weapon, and then that will allow you to keep your mobility, right? Like you're not going to get stuck in a like landing animation after your dodge roll. So it's going to be really good to do for a lot of resources. So you want to make sure that you're on top of this, and not to mention using this mechanic with the light armor roll, you will be able to travel a lot faster too. So if you want to, you can actually take off a few pieces of your armor, even if you're in heavy, while you're traveling. So if I were to wear a heavy chest piece and a helmet, I might still be in the light category, right? Whatever that is. Oh, sorry, pants and helmet. So yeah, I'm going to be walking around shirtless and shoeless, but I'm going to have access to that light armor roll, which is going to get me mobility across the map. So I can use that to literally get to some place in about half the travel time with the dodge mechanic. So once again, if you dodge and immediately switch your weapons, you will maintain that momentum. You can also dodge and sheath your weapon, which will also maintain the momentum as well. So those are kind of the two options for that. So make sure you master that mechanic and use it to get from point A to B instead of just AFK auto running, because you will save a lot of time, I'm telling you. The 10th and final mistake that I see a lot of people doing is that, remember, New World is a marathon, not a sprint. I've seen tons of people gas out because they stayed up 24, 36 hours or something, and then poof, they just disappear for like some 20-hour like sleeping coma or whatever it is, and then they wake up later and everyone's ahead of them, right? So if you want to stay up 24 hours, go for it, but honestly, like, go to sleep and get some rest at the end of the day. Usually I did like, 5-6 hours rest. And that did me quite well. Like, I woke up and yeah, some people were higher level than me, but by the time they woke up, I was already back past them and some, so it seemed to work out. So just keep that in mind, again, marathon, not a sprint. All right. Well, thanks for kind of checking out my top 10 mistakes here. I hope that these will help you going into the launch and avoid a lot of like, day one mistakes that, you're going to probably find these out eventually and you're going to be like, man, I wish I did that like from the get-go. And hopefully that will save you a lot of time, ease a lot of heartache, and just kind of kick you off on a better foot going into launch day. So once again, thank you for all the support. I do appreciate everyone that is subscribing, liking, and commenting. That definitely goes a long way. We also have a Discord, so if you're interested in talking with like-minded players and members of the community, feel free to check that out. It's also a great way to ask me questions or interact with me if you wish. And we also have a join button on YouTube, so if you're interested in supporting the channel even further, we have perks, membership benefits. We also have badges and emojis and all kinds of cool stuff, so consider looking at that. Thanks for your time, everyone, and we will catch you in the next video.